Are these ours to keep?
Yep,
Okay.
those are yours to keep. Okay, so I guess before getting into the script, let's talk about the 4 different personality styles. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a book called Versatile Selling, and that's Wilson Thompson Learning Group. I think it's like $12. You can get it on Amazon. It's got a green cover so that you know you're getting the right one. And Versatile Selling, and they talk about the ultimate. The platinum rule. Have you heard of?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of the golden rule, right? The golden rule is to treat others how you want to be treated. The platinum rule is to treat others how they want to be treated. Okay?
Okay.
So a lot of times we think, okay, well, I don't want to door knock because I hate it when people door knock me. Or I don't want to cold call or call somebody on the phone because I don't like it when I receive those calls at night and I want to enjoy time with my family, right? So a lot of times we don't take action because we're treating others how we want to be treated. And what this book talks about right out the gate is it's not about how we think other people want to be treated. Exactly. We need to identify their personality style, and most of them will fall in one of these 4 quadrants. So what I wrote out is tell versus ask. So somebody who tells more or somebody who asks more. And then I also got fact versus feeling. This might be tough to get on the recording from there, but basically you have people that are more fact-based versus feeling-based, right? So what we have in this top corner here is the driver personality. And I'm going to get into a little bit more details in terms of some of the characteristics and the traits that they have. That's somebody who's very tell. They're going to tell you exactly what they want to know. They don't care about the process. They just want these results, right? That's a driver. Tell and fact. That's all we care about. We don't care about how we feel. We don't care about how the baby's made. We just care about the baby. I want to see the baby, right? That's the driver personality. Then down here, we have the expressive. Expressive tend to be fast talkers. So if you see somebody speaking a lot or talking a lot, that typically, don't fall for the trap that that's always an expressive, because that can also be an analytical. So we have driver, we have expressive. This one is called amiable personality. That's more of the asking, the feeling on that area. And then on the top of them, the amiable is the analytical. So the good thing to know is roughly, and this is just roughly speaking, 25% of the population is about each of these quadrants, right? And some, what you're going to find, at least in this book, they're saying you're pretty much all of one of these quadrants. What I've heard other people say is you may have strengths or be predominantly this way, but you're also another way as well.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's under stress. People will respond differently than what they normally are when they're not under stress. So sometimes somebody can be more of an amiable personality. Amiable, and this is ask and feeling. Amiable, a lot of teachers, a lot of nurses, a lot of people who care about others almost more than themselves are the amiable personality. Go ahead and just grab a seat here. There you go. Yes, been a full seat in here too. Got one in the corner there. There we go.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna eat it either. Is there enough? Do you want me to?
Maybe if we can roll some
Get some chairs here.
Yeah.
Get some chairs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for making it on Friday afternoon. So, getting back into this, have you seen the personality styles?
When I go this way, and that way they can sit together.
Oh, that was right
More than
here.
likely, they're gonna sit together.
Oh, sorry. You can just throw it in the
yours?
corner. Yeah, thanks.
It feels
There we
heavy.
go. That'll work.
It feels heavy. It's ordeals.
It's that book. Yeah, right, I wish. That's that book they gave me at the other meeting this morning.
Oh, I thought it was all your money. You can't
Yeah, I carry all my life savings with me.
So what we started before getting to the prequel script is the different personality styles, right? Most people will have a tendency to be one of these 4 different social styles, personality styles, whatever it is that you want to call it. And what it does is it helps you identify who it is that you're speaking to help in your ability to connect with them. Because if you're speaking to the driver, and just to kind of line this up again, you got fact and feeling. So some people are more fact-based, others are more feeling-based. And you can hear it even in the words that they use. They'll say like, I feel like, or my gut tells me, or my intuition tells me, those are people that are more feeling based. People that are fact based, they just care strictly about the numbers. What do the numbers say? It's not about, they almost seem like no emotion, right? It's all just numbers and it's facts and it's those details. Then you have ask versus tell. Ask is asking more questions. They'll ask more questions. They're kind of slower in processing things. So if you see that, they could be either analytical or amiable, more ask. Tell, they're not going to hold back. They're just going to speak off the top of their head and usually pretty fast. Driver isn't going to say as much, but when they do speak, they're straight to the point. Okay, so you have to listen to the rate of speech, how fast, right? Rate of speech. You have to listen to the tonality. Tonality is the tone. So if somebody's very soft-spoken and they speak like this, and you're speaking very loud and fast and they're taking their time and they're doing it, we're not connecting.
I've had to do that because
Right.
I tend to talk loud
Right?
and a little bit fast,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll realize, oh my God, they're so quiet. So
You
I
get-
try to tone
you
it
do.
down
You
and do
slow
what
it.
they're doing.
You have to slow it down
Yeah.
because when we get in almost the same wavelength, right? We're going at the same rate. We're going at the same. Now they feel that you're communicating and they're listening and opening up. But when you're on different speeds and you're on different tonalities and different levels, it does things. And it makes, again, people are either going to want to open up and they're endeared to you, or they're put off and they're standing back. And they're kind of like, I don't know what it is about this person, but it's just not communicating. So it's literally almost like 4 different languages. Look at it as 4 different languages, and you have to speak to each person in the language they feel comfortable with, but we need to identify. And sometimes you may think, oh, it's got to be expressive. They talk really fast. They and they do this, but they only do that when they really know the subject. That's more of an analytical. Analytical is about the process, right? So we have a lot of, you'll have attorneys, you'll have engineers, you'll have those clients, and they want to see facts. They want to see what we did, that Flex Market Summary Report is gold for them because that's what they want to see is data. They want to see numbers, they want to see results. So you have to know who it is that you're speaking to. And as we talked about earlier, if you have a sheet that you're keeping track, like a contact sheet of somebody that you're following up with, on the top of the page it should say their personality style. And then what we said earlier is sometimes when people are under stress, they'll typically be amiable, but when they're under stress or they're pissed off, they're that driver, it flips, right? So people act differently under different situations, and you want to pay attention to that as well. So it's what we mentioned earlier, the platinum rule is treating others how they want to be treated, not how we want to be treated, by identifying how they want to be treated and then speaking to them in the way that they want to do that. Does that make sense?
And then depending on the client, it's because we do this pretty much every day.
Right.
And for them it might be too much information. That's why maybe sometimes you gotta slow down because the information
Overloading them.
yeah, and
And then
it's
they're
just coming
like-
in and out through the other ear, and sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta repeat yourself.
It's a
And
lot to take in what we have to tell everybody.
it is, but we want to get away from the telling, right, and asking more questions, listening, being there, and then when we do speak, and see, a lot of times is they'll say something, and then it triggers something in our head, and it's like, oh, we know the answer to that, so we want to tell them right away, and now our focus is on that first thing. And what George has taught me, and I've asked him questions like, how do you get past that? He said, look, I ask questions, I keep getting information. Even though I have an answer for that first one, I'm going to table it, right? And say, okay, we're going to cover that at the end here. So let's table that question. That's a great question, but tell me a little bit more about this. Let me ask you this, right? And still continue to you want to get the whole picture as much as you can. Then once you hear the whole picture, you're going to know, okay, this is the first thing that we need to start with. This is the very first issue in the area that we're going to jump on. Because what will happen is I don't want to say fall for the first one, but whatever that first issue is, that's where you're going to spend all your time. Now you never got the true nuggets of information that you needed if you would have kept asking questions and kept getting info and digging deeper with that. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we're going to do with the prequal script, and I can, in the future, I'm going to go over this again, and I'm going to get into a lot more detail with it. But I just wanted to make sure that first you're aware of it. That book breaks it down beautifully and talks about all that. Literally, it's the colors that people wear will help you identify what personality style they are. And usually greens and browns are usually more analytical. And I just know we just had a question just recently, so I know you're on your numbers. I know you know the process. I know you're about the facts and the numbers, right? And it typically says that. I can't remember what they said black or the darker colors were, but that was another personality style too. You can imagine the bright colors. Who would you think is wearing bright colors? Espresso, right? That's usually the yellows, the brights, the pinks, those things. That's typically espresso.
That's what Pete always wears.
What's that?
Yeah,
I see you in that pink jacket. So so it's literally even in the way that you speak, the talk, the facial expressions, it's what you say, and the more that we pick up on this, the more effective we are going to be at communicating, connecting with them, which is key, building that trust, and then being able to lead them through the process. So that's what I wanted to start with, is just kind of giving that basic overview. Then, as we talked about before, and I actually had this come up earlier with an agent, just talking about wanting to dissect her business and figure out what's most important and where to focus time on. And one of the things that I've learned is, first you get a call or something that comes in, right? So the very first thing was we have that initial call. And what are we trying to do with the initial call? So you got somebody who's calling just randomly off a sign, right, about a particular property. What's your goal when they call in? That very first phone call.
Get more information out of them, keep them talking,
Get their contact information.
be engaged with them, and so they don't just go, oh, okay, never mind, thanks, or hang up real quick. You want to get
Ask questions. I think the same thing. You gotta ask questions. Ask, oh yeah, so you're thinking of buying? Oh, have you talked to a lender?
Right. Right.
Try to get the basic stuff.
Right.
To see if it's gonna be a good lead or not.
So when you're doing that, no, that's spot on. You're asking questions. So that part of the process on the discovery part, that's actually what is the pre-qualification script. This isn't a pre-qual like the buyer's pre-qual. This is what we do. This is what the agent does on that very initial first phone call. It's the pre-qualification. And so what the goal is from that is to set an appointment, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to set an appointment off that initial call. And sometimes it's easy to set it. Sometimes they just want to see the place, right? So they call up and they're like, we just want to see the place. Well, if we start asking questions like, okay, are you working with an agent? No, I'm not. Or then maybe they say yes because they're afraid of us, right? And they just throw that out there. Or they've received an email from an agent. So are they working with an agent, right? The other question is, are you pre-approved, right? Have you started working on financing? And sometimes if you ask that question, and I've had people respond, oh my gosh, so are you saying in order for me to see this house, I gotta get pre-approved, right? And doing those things, that can happen. Well, there was a podcast I was listening to, and basically what he said, for internet lead conversion and to win the game of internet leads, it's your ability to meet somebody face to face. So you start pre-qualifying too much and they don't trust you, they don't know you from the next person, they're not gonna open up.
Yeah.
So your goal is to set the appointment and meet them face to face. Now we all have to be careful, right? You're getting a random internet lead. If you get a funny feeling, ask a lot of questions. Dig deep, make sure they're legit. Make sure that they are getting pre-qualified as a condition to suit. If your antenna is telling you there's something there, then you need to take that extra precaution, right? But putting safety aside, right, and just being about the goal on that phone, it's about setting the appointment. Number one most important thing, so it's the initial call, we go to set the appointment, okay? Now in setting the appointment, this is a skill to master. It's not easy to know when it's okay to set the appointment, but sometimes people just want to see the house, so don't make it too complicated. Meet them at the house, and then when you're there at the house, ask a lot of questions, right? Now, if you got 10, 15 escrows going on and all these listings, you don't have the time, then you have the right to pre-qualify and ask them every question and do it. If you're at the point where, it's like maybe a listing, maybe an escrow, or looking for that first one, you need to meet that person face to face and meet everybody who's breathing, who wants to meet face to face and talk to you about real estate. You need to make the effort to do it. Not the reasons not to go do it. You need to meet them and make those connections, because in our stats show that 2 out of 3 buyers, internet buyers, are going to work with the very first agent that they meet face to face with. As long as you don't blow it, right? As long as you don't go and you're too pushy or you're too just whatever and they don't feel it or they don't like what they're seeing, 2/3 of the people that you're gonna meet face to face, they're gonna work with you. They're not gonna fire you and hire somebody else. It's about the face to face meeting and the contact, and that's the key. So Initial call, set the appointment, right? Then we get to, so the appointment is set for Friday at 4 o'clock. Just gonna use that as the time. That's the actual presentation. So we need to be prepped and is ready to go before the presentation. What happens before the presentation? So they called us up. They said, hey, we're actually thinking about selling our house. Can you meet us at Friday at 4 o'clock? So they make it really easy to set that appointment. Wonderful. I'll see you at Friday at 4 o'clock, right? We can be done. That could be the end of that conversation. We didn't say too much. We didn't scare them away. We didn't, we have that appointment set and we got it locked. The next part of what you can do, there's one other step that should happen before you get to the presentation. And it gets back to what you already mentioned about asking questions.
Confirming pre-qual.
Confirming the appointment in pre-qual, right? So it's the pre-qualification process, and this is what our focus is going to be. So pre-qualification, and in that we confirm the appointment. And to keep it real simple, this is what it sounds like. So Thursday at around, it could be any time, whatever time they say is a good time to call them. So when I talk to them in the initial, I'm gonna say, hey, and just as a reminder, I'm gonna call you on Thursday, and I'm gonna confirm that Friday still works for you. Is there a time that works best for you for me to confirm that with you? They say, yeah, in the morning, anytime's fine, or between 2 and 3 o'clock on Thursday. So the day before every presentation, you have to do the pre-qual. The pre-qual is key. Now the only other option instead of doing it the day before is on that initial call when you set the appointment. So don't be afraid. If you set the appointment pretty easy, and these are just certain stats that it's important to know about. When we get into these habits and we start setting up our business where we're setting an appointment every day. So our goal is to set one appointment a day, and we set 5 appointments a week, right? 50% of those are gonna cancel and reschedule. When you set those appointments for more than 48 hours out, right? So if it's more than 2 days away, odds are it's gonna cancel or reschedule. We're very busy with our lives and emotional. It's nothing against any of us. It's just the busyness of life and things happening, right? So it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just to know that we have to get in the habit of setting an appointment a day, because even if you set 5 appointments for that next week, it's likely you're gonna go on 2.5. I don't know how you do the half appointment, but you're gonna do 2 or 3 appointments that next week, right? So, but you'll have higher success rates if you can set that appointment within 48 hours, number one tip, that's huge. The second thing is you never text them the day before. And I'm guilty of it, I've done it plenty of times in the past. If you text an amiable personality, amiable is the person who is, again, it's almost more of a pleaser and they want to help other people out. They're not as concerned for themselves, but they don't want to tell you no on the phone. So they'll set the appointment just to get you off the phone. Oh yeah, I'll meet you on Friday at 4. Then you shoot them a text on Thursday. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't get with you. It's gonna come up. So you have to call them.
It
right?
also depends on, like you say, figuring out, their personality,
Right.
Also, young kids.
Yep.
This text,
Right.
Everybody, wants to
They
text.
want to text
No
typically,
communication
right?
anymore
They
with
do. And
voice.
if you try to call and they don't pick up, right? And you have to go
Yeah.
to text, you gotta go to text,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I won't even text.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that they get there, because the last time I text, they rescheduled on me, right? But we have this appointment set. And I've heard John Sides say he'll call them literally like the minute before, okay, I'm here, I'm pulling up, right? So they don't reschedule on him. So you gotta watch, there is a skill set in terms of setting appointments, then doing the pre-qual. So one way of doing it is if you have a good conversation on that initial call and you set the appointment and it's all set, to make sure that they come, you gotta create enough value. You create the value by, how do you create the value on that initial call? I already said it, I'm just asking questions. So we got to ask good questions. We really got to understand what it is that their situation, that's the pre-qual script. And when we do that the right way, now they're going to show up, their odds of showing up are much more likely, because we've taken the time to ask these questions and get deep and really know what their situation is, okay? So I know I'm going to add more to it, once we get along with this process, but just something simple on this pre-qual. I'm going to just do it for the Thursday. We set the appointment. On Thursday, I call up Stan. Stan, you're my seller for this situation, okay? So I call Stan and I said, ring. Hello, is this Stan?
Hello, yes,
Hey Stan,
Oh, yeah.
great. How are you doing?
doing great.
Wonderful. Well, Stan, I'm very excited to meet with you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Just want to make sure that time still works for you.
4 o'clock? Yeah, I think that'll work.
Wonderful. And you mentioned your wife is on title as well?
Yes, yes.
And she'll be there with us tomorrow at 4
I
o'clock?
don't know if she'll be able to make it.
She may not be able to.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that you're both there. Is there a better time that we should get together to do this?
Yeah, if we could push it back about an hour and a half, I think we could make that happen.
Okay, so 5:30 would work better for you? Wonderful. And your wife should be able to be there if it's at 5:30? Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to meet with you and your wife. So we're going to do it for tomorrow at 5:30 to make sure that works for both of you. And to make sure that we get the most out of our meeting tomorrow, is it okay if I ask you a few questions?
Right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure.
Just to make sure that we make the most out of our meeting tomorrow.
Sure.
Wonderful. And then I'm going to start with it. So it's very simple early on. It's acknowledging, committing to the time, right? Making sure if there are two people on title, that ideally they're both there. Because you can already imagine what the objection is going to be if you give a perfect presentation only to one spouse that's on title, right? So, well, I need to talk to my wife, or I need to talk to my spouse, or whatever the situation is, and they're not going to make a decision there. So ideally, you want to be in front of both people if you can, if you have that opportunity. If it's impossible to do it, you don't want to miss the appointment, you just meet with the one person that you can meet with, okay? If you also listen, the key thing that I said to earn the right to ask the questions, to make the most out of our meeting tomorrow, I got a few questions for you. That's all you got to say. Something simple to that, and it's very effective, and typically most people will open up and share some information with you. So why do we want to ask all these questions before we meet them?
You wanna see that, that it's gonna be a good lead to get the listing.
Right.
Motivation.
Good opportunity to know what? Motivation
And time.
and time. Time, what do you mean by time?
Well, the time that they wanna make the move or.
Okay.
Yeah, because like earlier today,
Right.
6 months ahead, you're really, just getting, getting pre-qualified, but in
Right.
reality, you wanna see them like at least a month before, the
Right.
actual listing, because like you say, we gotta get photograph, to go out there, so there's things to be done, get the house ready, so I think, depending on when,
So
they're thinking of.
you're spot on with it. And those are some of the questions that I'll bring up towards the end, after I know we're at a good place, after I know that I've dug deep enough and got really their story and understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And once we're there and I can tell we're at a good spot, then I'm going to start talking in terms of timing, trying to get over the timing objection. And then usually they're like, well, we're thinking 6 months to a year from now. I'm going to show the market stats, show them why that could be costly to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm also going to show them, okay, well, if you'd like to set it up, your house looks beautiful right now. Would you be available by this weekend for photography, for photos? And they're like, really? You think it's ready now? Absolutely. And you shared with me this price, which we know is a good price. Commission, we haven't talked about, but everything's feeling pretty good. And so I will try to set that photo appointment up for that Saturday. When I start working on the calendar, that means we're moving towards, they're either gonna say, no, this is too early, or they're gonna be like, okay, well, if you're saying the house is ready, we'll get it ready. We'll be ready by Saturday. Yeah, Saturday morning would be great. Is there anything else that we think we need to do? And then I could either tell them that, or I can bring in somebody who's a stager, right, and have them come over and give some advice. But you gotta be careful with that, because sometimes you bring the stager who has their job in terms of they wanna stage the property. They can create a lot of fear, a lot of anxiousness, a lot of other things that somebody now feels that their house isn't ready, or it's gonna be too much work. And a lot of times we know as professionals when we walk in, we know already, okay, this house is ready to go, especially at the right price. They're good. They don't need to do a whole lot more. They don't need to do all these extra things. So that's what we're trying to accomplish in that meeting. Okay, is that all good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of arms you with, you kind of understand their personality traits, number
Right.
one.
Uh-huh.
And then now you know how to prepare.
Absolutely. The preparation is key. And then when you ask these questions, which we're gonna go through right now, Pete, do you mind being my seller for this one?
Sure.
But are these the questions you're saying then we ask once we're in the door face to face, or are you
Before.
saying this is the phone call?
ideally before on the
Before you
phone
even
call.
get in there on the phone. And then the ones we did at the other meeting today
Right.
was the ones you go through when you're there.
And
Some of these look the same.
some are going to be the same,
Okay.
right? Some you're going to get a little deeper. Some you're not going to like the questions. If you're going to Mike Ferry Coaching, he's going to tell you read every word for word. The dots, you can give it a little bit of a space. No, it's straight to the point. Again, that, in my opinion, that's more of a driver personality. When you start off, you'll see the very first question. If what I say makes sense, and you feel comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list your home with me when I come out on Friday at 4 o'clock? So that's you,
my favorite.
it is. The script is, and it works.
Mhm.
But that's getting straight to the point. You're cutting everything out, and you're finding out, okay, are you planning to list with me when we get together on Friday at 4 o'clock? They're either going to say one of two things, yes, or we're not sure yet. You come highly recommended. We're going to talk to 2 other agents. They say that, that's fine, that's great. So you want to affirm, well, this is a very important decision. So I appreciate that we have the time to get together on Friday at 4 o'clock, right? And I'm excited to share with you what I do to successfully sell our clients' home for top dollar and do those things, right? And then eventually, what's another question if somebody shares that with me about they're interviewing 2 other agents? What would be a good follow-up question to that?
What companies did you have in mind?
What companies do they work
What other
with,
agent
right?
are you working with?
That's great. So you can ask them.
Just out of curiosity.
Right, just out of curiosity, who else are you interviewing, right? And they'll tell you who, and then you can ask them. You can also ask them something of, okay, how did you were you referred that person? Try to find a little deeper in terms of what the connection is.
Or have you signed anything?
Have you signed anything? That's an important question, right? Have you met with anybody yet? So, and what you'll find out is sometimes you're getting kind of the roadblocks and they don't feel comfortable talking about that on the phone. You gotta use your gut instincts here, right? And know, okay, you know what? They're just not opening up or not feeling comfortable. I'm not gonna blow seeing them face to face and having the opportunity to speak. You're just gonna be doing more discovery there. And when you can do it ahead of time, you're gonna increase your chances that you're answering all their questions. Because if they have all their questions answered and they aren't concerned about what it takes to sell their home or to take the next step in there, the natural thing to do is to start moving forward. When people don't make that decision, it's because we haven't done our job in terms of finding out everything that's going on up here. They're not sure of what they're not sure about. And with all that uncertainty, and that's what we talked about earlier in terms of casting the vision, with all that, it's very difficult to get to it, okay? So let me jump into this, and I'm just gonna go, I say word for word, but it'll probably change up a little bit here. Let's see, you ready? All right. So, Pete, so I'm calling you on the phone. So if you don't mind standing, just so we can demonstrate how to do this when we're practicing. We go back to back on this
Okay.
one, on a phone call.
No,
Okay.
it's right on the phone.
All right. So, and you don't get to cheat.
Okay.
I get to cheat as the agent. Okay. All right. So we just start off. Ring.
Hello?
Hi, is this Pete?
Yes, this is Pete.
Hi, Pete. This is Brandon Raymond with Century 21. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, Pete. Pete, just want to make sure we're still good for our meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Yes, we're still good.
Yes, and you mentioned that your wife wanted to be at that meeting as well. Is she going to be able to make it?
Because of her work schedule, she might not be able to be there. Maybe at a later time if you want her to be there.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'd like for both of you to be there if that's possible. How much later would be more ideal for both of you?
Is 6 okay with you, or you want to schedule another time?
Let's do 6 o'clock. Does that work for you and your wife?
Yes, I think that'll work.
All right, I'm gonna check with my boss, but let's tentatively set it for 6, and then if my boss tells me something differently, then I will let you know, but we should be good for tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Okay, great.
All right, you know who my boss is, right? So, Pete, so I got a few questions for you just to make sure we get the most out of our meeting tomorrow. You got a few minutes right now?
Yes.
Wonderful. So just curious. So if what I say makes sense tomorrow when we get together and you feel comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list your home with me when I come out tomorrow at 6 p.m.?
Well, yeah, if everything makes sense, yeah, I don't see why not.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. And I look forward to showing you what we do to make sure that our clients get everything it is that they're looking for. So, are you planning to interview any other agents for the job of selling your home?
No, as of now, I got your name from somebody else, and I just like to work with you if everything makes sense.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited that to have that opportunity to show you how I work and how we can work together to have a successful sale of your home. Tell me again, where were you planning to move next?
Well, the ideal thing is I have a 2-story house, and I'm thinking maybe to downgrade maybe for a single story now.
Okay, so you currently have a 2-story home, and you'd like to downgrade to a single story?
Yes, maybe I live in Oxnard, maybe thinking of either staying in Oxnard or maybe Camarillo.
Okay, wonderful. So you're open to Oxnard or Camarillo.
Yes.
Wonderful. And how soon do you have to be there?
Well, I'm thinking maybe within the next 3 to 6 months, depending on what can I get for my house and how the market is.
Okay.
So
your plan is roughly about 3 to 6 months,
yes.
and that's just based on how the market's responding to your property being on the market,
Mm-hmm.
and just what type of offers we get in that time period. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when I see you, how much do you plan to list your home for?
Well, I hope I can get like maybe 900,000.
900,000. That's great. And do you mind sharing with me how you came up with 900,000?
Well, we have been keeping up with the house. We have been doing some upgrades. So I think that that really helped.
Okay, so you've done some updating. Do you mind sharing with me what updates you've done to the home?
Well, I done some flooring. I done new carpet, new wood flooring. Updated the bathrooms. Kitchen it's already been upgraded. So
Okay.
pretty much just that.
Wonderful. So you mentioned you did the flooring, you did the carpet, you did some wood flooring, you've updated the bathrooms, and the kitchen was already updated when you purchased it?
Yes.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you plan to do before you list the home?
No, not unless there's something you suggest.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see you, and once we get there, I'll tour the home and give you my professional opinion on where it's at in terms of the price that you're looking to get for the sale of your home.
Okay.
Okay. So as a professional real estate agent, I do study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at a price that will cause your home to sell. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So what price won't you go below?
I would say maybe no less than 850.
Okay, so 850 would be your bottom number?
Yes.
Okay. And how much do you owe on the property, Pete?
About 450.
Okay, so you owe about 450,000. Wow, you've done very well in this home.
Yes.
And you said 850 is your bottom number, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever thought about selling it yourself, Pete?
No, I don't think I have the knowledge to do that.
Okay.
Myself.
Really? I'd heard you're one of the top agents in Ventura County. No, that's so you haven't sold a home on your own before?
No.
Okay, well that's great. I'm excited to help guide you through that process. This is what we do every single day, as I mentioned earlier. Do you plan to help finance the home for your buyer, or do you want to cash out?
Finance.
Okay, finance the home.
Mm-hmm.
And would you please describe your home other than what you've already shared? What led you to purchase the property when you and your wife were looking the first time to buy this home?
The kids were younger, needed a bigger yard, had a 1-story before.
Okay.
Thought I'd try out a 2-story.
Okay.
So
So
the kids have grown up already.
wonderful.
So
That's great.
so to make a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you empty nesters yet?
Almost.
Almost there.
Almost there.
Okay, so that's why the single story makes more sense for you.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I'm going to be sending over a package of information to you. Will you take a few moments to review that before we get together tomorrow?
Yes.
Sure. And do you have any questions for me before I arrive tomorrow?
Well, now that I think about it, so how much do you charge for commission?
How much do I charge for commission? That's a great question. And so what I hear from you is that you're trying to walk away with the most amount of money possible, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, how about we do this? When we get together tomorrow, that would be the very first thing that we cover. I show you exactly what the cost will. I'm gonna provide you a net sheet so you can see all the costs and exactly what you'll walk away with from the sale of your home. And I'm gonna show you how you're gonna make more money with me than anybody else out there. Would that be something you're interested in?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I didn't do that right, but I tried, and you can hear some of it. And the biggest thing is shifting the focus from cost and expense, right, of what they're looking at, because then they're just focused on the price. What do you charge versus the next person? To benefit. The benefit is that they're gonna make more money working with a professional, just like you get what you pay for. If you hire an attorney and you're going for the cheapest attorney, you may not get the best results, right? Or a doctor, brain surgeon. Are you gonna go for somebody who's offering discount rates on brain surgery? Well, you wanna be able to show that, look, this is a very important decision of what we're making here. So there is a cost to it, but I'm gonna show you how you're gonna walk away with more money working with a professional who's gonna guide you through the process and protect you and do that. And if we start talking commission on the phone right now, there's a chance that that's all the deciding factor is, because all I've done so far is just ask a bunch of questions, right? I've shown some value in terms of asking good questions, and I've shown that I've listened, but I really haven't presented anything yet. So ideally, we want to have that conversation face to face. There are times, and it's all case by case, that I will give them the commission over the phone, right? And I can say something to the effect of, well, just like other top professional agents in this industry, I'm very competitive with 6% commission. And I'll show you how you will net more money with that when we get together tomorrow. Does that sound fair enough?
Sounds fair.
Wonderful. So we get together and we do it. We go through, but great question. That is a question that does come up on that pre-qual, and I've made the mistake in the past of saying something like, oh, well, I typically charge 6, I'll do it for 5 for this particular situation, and it was a referral, and then I go and I meet with them, and then he's trying to work me down to 4% and potentially gonna make a bad decision. Now I have to overcome that objection, where if we just would have had the conversation face to face, it likely wouldn't have been an issue, especially after they heard a good quality presentation. A good quality presentation, the best objection handler is a strong presentation. So if you ask the right questions, you connect, you listen, and you guide them through the process, there usually isn't a lot of resistance in terms of what your value is. The other thing to emphasize when the commission question comes up, there's 2 main things. One, many of the public don't realize how important it is to offer at least 2.5% commission to the selling office. Why don't we want to offer less than 2.5%? I'm not talking company policy, right? But why don't we want to do
Some
that?
agents won't even show it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they just go, that's a 2%, let's go to this other one. I mean, the client doesn't know that.
Well, but that's what we want our client to know,
Right.
not their
That
client.
client, but I mean, the
Right,
buyer
their client.
doesn't know you might skip a
Right.
house because it's only a 2% commission. You might not even bring it up to them because you see a 2.5 or a 3%. I don't do that.
Right. No,
But
no,
there are
but
agents that will.
they're right, but there are many agents. So agents, we want to attract as much of the right activity that we can possibly from this listing. So if you don't offer at least 2.5% commission to the selling office side, then you're actually hurting your client. And some agents are fine doing that because they want a better chance of finding the buyer themselves. They know if they offer for less than 2.5% that they're not going to get as much exposure, and they're okay with that. That's not how we represent our clients. That's not how we generate the most activity out there. So it's explaining what the commission is. And again, is the seller going to pay you anything if you don't find them the buyer that they're happy with what they're netting at the end of the sale? If they're not happy with that, what do we get paid?
0.
Nothing, right?
Plus, if an agent's trained